Hi, I'm Joe Mimran, and welcome back to the Export Impact Podcast, a series about companies taking risks, dreaming big, and making a global impact. My guests today are Monika, Buna, and Rachael, Petch, the CEOs of Malarkey Kids. If you've ever had to deal with a teething baby, you know just how incredibly frustrated and helpless you can feel to watch your child suffer, especially if the only thing they want to gnaw on is their own hand. Enter the Munch Mitt, a wearable teether that can finally give your little ones some relief. The Munch Mitt is produced by Malarkey Kids, a self-described mommy-owned and mommy-run company. I am joined now by Monika, Buna, and Rachael, Petch, the women in charge of Malarkey Kids. I'd like to begin today's episode by acknowledging that we're recording from my office in Toronto, which is on the traditional unceded territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We value taking this moment to deepen the appreciation of our Indigenous communities wherever we are, and to remind ourselves of our shared debt to Canada's First Peoples. Welcome to the show, Monika and Rachael. Glad you could join us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. Now, what is Malarkey? Why don't you tell us what sort of products you manufacture? I did mention it briefly, but perhaps you can get into a little more detail on the product itself and how it came to be and the target audience that you're after.
Yes. So Malarkey Kids was developed in 2015, and it actually wasn't Monika and I who developed the product. It was the previous owner, Melissa, and she developed it for the need of her son with teething, and he was chewing on his hands, like you had said. And she couldn't find anything out there that would help soothe his pain that he was going through. So she decided, I'm going to make it. So she did. It developed in 2015 and it has taken over. And yeah, it's a wearable teether, goes on baby's hands, they can teeth on it.
So she designed the product originally?
Yeah.
And now were you guys with the company at the time?
Not at the time. So the company started in 2015. I started working with the company in 2016. Melissa posted on Facebook mommy group that she was looking for some help. So at the time, my son was about ready to go into junior kindergarten. And I was like, I need a job. I want to get back to work. So I applied. I got the job. We had 2 SKUs at the time. And shortly after that, Monika was hired. Now we've got over 100 in 10 different product lines.
Speak to me a little bit about the different SKUs that you have. You have it over 10 product lines. How are those different? Is it still just the one teether idea, or now do you have a whole host of products that go with that teether product?
So they're all teether based. So we have the Munch Mitt, which was the very first product. We have bibs. We have other teether rattles. We have teether tethers with teethers attached to them. We have a mini mitt, which is a 2-in-1. It's an anti-scratch plus a teething mitten, which is very unique and different in the market.
So it's everything you could put in your mouth then as a baby.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And how do you two work together? Who does what? Monika, when did you join the company?
I joined just a few months after Rachael. I think why we work so well together is because we're literally polar opposite. She's got that creative mind. You know, she's a people person and remembers everyone's name and dog breed and how many children they have. Whereas I am more on the operations and numbers and Excel spreadsheet side of things. So we work really well. She's strong in the departments I am not, and vice versa. When the opportunity arose to buy the company, it was just natural for us to buy it together 50-50 because I couldn't do it without her and she couldn't have done it without me.
I think a lot of these types of consumer-based businesses need the left and right side of the brain to really work well. When you could find that partnership, I think it creates a bit of magic, which is what you guys have been able to do. But it was a big risk. I mean, how difficult was it for you to buy the company? And why did the original founder want to get out of the business at such an early stage?
She went through a really tough time just as COVID started. She was diagnosed with cancer and was battling that for just over a year. And once she was finally cancer free, about maybe 2 years after diagnosis, I guess she realized that there's just more to life and she wanted to spend more time with her family and her heart just wasn't in it anymore. It was a little too much. So when she approached us and we said, I want this to stay in the family and I don't want it to be torn apart by a big conglomerate. So we sat down, we talked about it, we looked at the numbers, and because we've been essentially running it for a number of years, we knew the ins and outs of it. And it was such a smooth transition. It was very easy to take over because nothing really changed. The operations didn't change. The leadership structure didn't change. The employees didn't change. The SKUs, nothing changed. It was just passing on the torch. So it was quite easy.
Right. But it certainly had to go out and raise capital in order to do that. How did that process go and how easy was it for you to get the capital together?
We did use quite a bit of our personal capital, but RBC helped us immensely by giving us the rest of the loan that we needed to purchase the company. They did certainly do their due diligence. I mean, the application process was extensive, but they were very supportive. We're super proud of us. And at every chance they had, they would give us education or literature or just actually guiding us through it step by step because we've never done something like this before. So it was very fortunate that we had such a great team of financial advisors and accountants, as well as their legal team that taught us essentially what the whole process entails.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How many employees did you have at the time when you bought the business?
I think that there was 4. We did have about 10 prior to COVID. We had to downsize during COVID just to keep the doors open. Just before we took over, there was 7 of us, and now we're down to 5.
Wow. And speaking of COVID, I'm sure you had supply chain issues like so many other people. What did you see during COVID? There was all of the supply chain issues, the cost of bringing goods over, factories that were closing down. How did you manage through that? And what did you see in your e-com sales during the COVID period? Did they tick up dramatically during that period?
With regards to logistics and bringing in inventory, that was very difficult. For a container that used to cost us maybe $3,000 was now $25,000 to bring in. So our margins were literally non-existent. We were just trying to break even at that point and stay afloat as long as we could until things settled down. We were without inventory, Rach. I think it was for an entire first quarter at least because we couldn't get the inventory in. There were rolling blackouts in China where our products are manufactured. The factories were getting shut down because of the outbreaks. But we did what we could and we sold what we could. I don't think there was much difference with our e-commerce, but that's not where we shine.
Yeah, e-commerce has always been a hard one for us. The direct-to-consumer market has just been hard for us to break into, but luckily we do have our big box buyers. We're in Target in the US and Walmart Canada and Bye Bye Baby, and they kept us alive during COVID. As well as the retailers, they were able to switch and pivot to online sales. So our smaller retailers were still worrying a little bit, but we had the big guys that backed us up, and thank goodness for that because we made it through.
Right. And are you mostly in the US?
Yeah, most of our business is done in the US.
And was it always mostly in the US?
Yeah. It was easier for us to break into the US than it was for Canada. Getting retailers to take us on in Canada has always been a little bit of a struggle. We did have Toys R Us and we do have Walmart Canada, but yeah, Canada's trickier for some reason.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Now, you're involved in baby products, and I know that baby products generally require a lot more compliance than other products. I'd love to hear how you navigate all of that, given the number of factories that you probably are operating out of, the number of SKUs, and the fact that it's always touching their mouths. How do you deal with all of those issues?
We take the compliance and the testing quite seriously because it is a baby product and it does go into baby's mouth. So the bigger retailers especially are a lot more strict when it comes to that. So we use a third-party quality control company that inspects all of our purchase orders And we ensure that all the safety testing is completed through another third-party laboratory. So they're impartial. They're not ours. They're not the factories. They're a third party. And we are so stringent that we even test for EU standards, which are the hardest tests to pass. Right now, we test for Australian standards, Canadian standards, USA, as well as European standards. And when we pick up new markets, then we'll test for those as well.
That's really good. And as you design new products, how do you determine what new products that you want to bring to market? What's the process you go through for bringing new products to market?
So because of COVID and the lack of sales and of buying the company, we're going very slow on new development. We don't want to get in over our heads and spend too much money and take on more than we can chew at this point. But we do want to focus on expanding our market. And so far, we've done a lot in the teething space and the baby space. And we kind of fall into the feeding area in a lot of stores that were in the baby section in the feeding departments. We want to expand on that, and we want to grow in more of a toy category. So right now we're looking at developing more of a toy, but still being for baby toddlers so we can expand our market. Because we are finding that when we go to trade shows and we're meeting new retailers, we're finding that people kind of walk past us a little bit because they're like, oh, we don't have a baby section. They do more toys. So now we want to expand on that and try to tap into that market a little bit more.
How does that break down between big box retailers and independents or smaller chains? How does your business break down? Is it kind of the 80-20 rule?
Revenue-wise, we're mostly big box. We weren't before. When the company first started, for the first 3 years or so, we were mainly small retailers. And as we started picking up the big box stores like the Targets and the Walmarts and Buy Babies and the Nordstrom, we started to grow in that area a lot faster. But having said that, we accommodate our smaller retailers because we feel that they need a little bit more support to compete against the big guys. So what we do is we create exclusive SKUs for Walmart, exclusive SKUs for Target that don't directly compete with some of the SKUs that all of our smaller retailers have. So if you want to get a certain knit or a certain Pantone of our Chew Cube, we can only get it at the smaller retailers. But if you want our standard mass production SKUs, then you can go to Target and maybe there will be a bit of a price break, but it might not be the most sought after color at the moment, because they pick a color and they stick with it for an entire year.
It sounds like you've got a very lean team for such broad distribution. Do you use a third-party distribution? You do your own shipping?
We do our own shipping in Canada out of our warehouse here in Burlington, but we do have a third-party company in Buffalo, New York that does all of our shipping outside for the USA.
The fulfillment center, / warehouse, yeah.
So do you keep a lot of inventory on hand?
We have to have a supply of at least 6 months worth of inventory because we pick up new contracts monthly, and we don't have the stock to supply them for at least 6 months before I can get another container in, then they might not take on that SKU. It's easier to supply the smaller guys because they order in smaller quantities. But if we don't have that 6 month supply, in case, a Nordstrom comes by and says, okay, we'll take this SKU, we have to have that supply ready for them just in case. So most of our inventory is in Buffalo.
It sounds like you're really growing. How are you keeping up with the growth?
I think our standard operating procedures don't really change from one client to the next. We've got an EDI company that does most of the big box stores where everything is automated now. So it's not like we have to process each order by hand, typing it in. The data entry is a little bit more streamlined. So that helps. Technology is our friend when we actually learn how to use it and understand it. Yeah, it can get a little daunting, but we do use distributors outside of US and Canada. So we do sell into Australia, France, Spain, a few other countries, and we rely on the distributors there to do what we do here based on the different language barriers and legal barriers and customs barriers. We give them a really great price point on the product, but they have to manage everything within their country. So that does help as well.
Oh, I'm sure it must help a lot. And it gives you that extra volume so that you can negotiate better prices with the factories, presumably. Just switching gears a little bit, what do you do on the marketing side? How do you manage that piece of it? Again, is that all done internally with your small team?
I did try to do that and I couldn't figure it out. So for the life of me, I don't understand Instagram. I don't understand TikTok. So we did hire a third party. We have a girl who handles all of our social media because we just assumed a lot of debt when we bought the company. We don't have we have no budget for marketing. So we don't spend any money on ads or the pay-per-clicks or any of that. We just use user-generated content. And we really love the user-generated content because our followers, they really relate to it and they love to see it. So we repost everything that our customers are posting and tagging us in. We use our own lifestyle photos that we've taken over the years. But yeah, it's a whole different world and full-time job.
And how many followers do you have?
We have 103,000 on Instagram.
Very good. That's very good.
We do also rely on our sales rep groups as well, and especially in the US. We provide them with all the material they could possibly want for marketing purposes, pictures, videos, catalogs, anything that they want, and they distribute it among their clientele. We do things that way, and then the trade shows for marketing purposes, but the social media thing is a beast.
Now, do you go to the trade shows yourselves? And how many different trade shows do you attend in a given year?
Well, we haven't attended any really since COVID. This is our first year. So far this year, we've been to the Atlanta market, the gift show. We've done Toy Fest West in Las Vegas. We go back to Las Vegas next month for a non-foods show, which is going to be really exciting for us because this is going to open some doors that we haven't been able to get into. So this is like a grocery kind of pharmacy group that we're becoming a part of. So we're really excited about that. And then we'll do Astra, which is a specialty toy show, and New York Toy Fair. So we do about, 5 to 6 shows a year. And then we're hoping to do some international shows in Germany in 2024.
Oh, so you are going to go international. And tell me, in terms of continuing to export, what new countries are you looking at? What help are you getting from different groups?
Well, we've decided to focus on trying to get into Mexico for this next 12-month period. And we've spoken to TCS, who will be introducing us to some boots on the ground out in Mexico who can help us get some market research, meet some companies that will perhaps help us with the social media and maybe even introduce us to some buyers or distributors. So that's going to help. Plus, we've spoken to people who could help us set up an Amazon page directly in Mexico, all in Spanish and all of that. They're our neighbors, so we definitely want to tap into that market. We did have a small little presence there a few years ago, but it just kind of died with our distributor. I think he retired, and so the market retired with him, and now we're just looking to get back into it.
That's great. Well, it certainly sounds like you're making quite a global impact. If you think about where you are now, you're in Australia, you're in Spain, you're in, did you say France?
Yep. Hong Kong, UAE, quite a few Middle East countries, actually. We're in Switzerland, in Sweden. Yep.
How did you meet and engage to find distributors in each of these countries?
We went to Cologne. There's a trade show called K&J. We've been doing that one for years. And we usually set up in the USA Pavilion, because it's a little bit larger than the Canadian one. We just set up and meet people who just walk by and see our product and stop and talk to us. And that's how we found every single one of them. Actually, there was a couple that we found through New York Toy Fair.
And ABC in Las Vegas, yeah.
And are those shows geared to the baby market? Or are these general shows, like you mentioned, the KMJ and Cologne?
It is mostly children, babies, and toys.
Yeah, the Toy Fair in New York City, that one is more toy. So that's got a lot of bigger brands. And there's only one aisle that's for baby. We do try to stick within the baby space.
So that's a lot of traveling that you're going to have to do. How do you split that up between the two of you? Who decides who goes and who stays? Or do you both go?
We both go for now. We're hoping maybe in a couple of years, we can start trading off, or maybe we'll be able to have some extra employees that can go do some of our trouble for us. But we're using this opportunity to really connect with everybody again, because we've felt since COVID and the world shutting down and not being able to get out there, and especially in Canada, we were locked down for a lot longer than they were in the US. So we need to rebuild those relationships and get back out there. And now that Monika and I own the company, Monika needs to have a presence because she was only doing the international shows before, whereas I was doing all of them. So I know all of the retailers, I know all of our sales reps, and I know all of the buyers, but Monika hasn't really gotten there yet. So it's really a good opportunity for her to go out and meet everybody and put a face to a name and build those relationships up.
Yeah, sounds amazing. How many sales reps do you have?
They're all independent. So we work with a number of different groups in the US. So we have a sales rep group that's in the South. And then we have another one that's in the New York area. And then we have another one that's in California. So we have all of these different groups that work for us, and we pay them on a commission basis, but they go out on the road and they show our products. So they bring us retailers.
That's fantastic. And you have this connection with moms. Tell me a little bit about this moms community and the power of that community and how that has helped your business grow.
Word of mouth. Word of mouth is the best kind of advertising. And you've got one mom who posts a picture of her baby using the MunchMed or a Chew Cube, and they see their baby loving the product. They talk about how great it is. I think people really love the fact that we're women and we own a company and we create these products and we help each other out. I think that we get a lot of extra support because of that, because we're women owned and operated and we're moms ourselves. So we understand the need for these products too.
Yeah, the women that work with us and for us are moms as well. And we've developed this culture in the office as well. It revolves around being a mom. You come to work after you drop off your kids and you leave before you have to pick them up. And that's just that work-life balance that we've grown accustomed to, and it works. It really works.
It sounds like it's working extremely well. You're building a unique culture, and that's quite amazing. If you have anything that you wish you had gotten advice on prior to starting on this venture, what would that advice have been?
I would have loved to have taken a few graphic design courses prior to this venture. It seems like that is something we're constantly needing to outsource. So that's something that would be great to have in-house. We've got someone who's an amateur graphic designer who helps us come up with the concept, and then we have to outsource to get it done, print ready or marketing ready. But I wish I had known that.
Yeah. And I think we would have spent money differently. I think there's just a lot of different things that we could have done. We've made some mistakes along the way, even before we took over the company, launching a product before it was ready. And then the product goes on hold for 2 years, making sure that the products are tested before we release them to the market. So there's been a lot of mistakes. So I think maybe just listening to people a little bit more and trusting other people's opinions. And that's something that Monika and I are definitely going to do.
Well, making mistakes is really what an entrepreneur's life is all about. And sometimes you learn, I think, more from a mistake than being advised.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like you're on such a great track to grow your business. What is your biggest challenge today? I know that you mentioned inventory and keeping up with sales. What is one of your other biggest challenges today?
Yeah, I think their biggest challenge right now is purchase order financing. So when we are bringing in 6 months worth of inventory for a Target, for example, that can be up to $250,000. And because the terms with the factory are different than the terms with the buyer, it doesn't usually work in our favor. So to have a little bit more help in the financing department so that we're able to keep our inventory levels right where they should be would be a great big help. And RBC is willing to help. And we've spoken to BDC who are also willing to help. We'll be going through that application process as well.
So what's the goal? What's next? What are you going to conquer the world? How are you going to conquer the world? What are your plans?
So the first thing is we have to pay off all the debt. And then we hope to launch some new products and to really get back out there and have something different and appeal to a different kind of market and continue to grow and thrive.
And I don't think Rachael and I are the type of people who want to conquer the world. We don't want to take over the entire baby teething department. We just want to find our little slice of heaven, our little niche that we can be comfortable in and have that work-life balance. At the same time, bring joy and relief to millions of babies around. So I don't think our ceiling is too high. I think we're pretty realistic in that department.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, it sounds like you've built a wonderful business. Sounds like you have a wonderful relationship. Sounds like you've got a following that really admires your product and the culture that you're building around the product and the brand. It sounds like you're going to be in business for a long time to come. Very proud of what you've accomplished. Really great to see two entrepreneurs, female or not. You are great entrepreneurs and you really embody what entrepreneurship is about, and the ability to export the way you have is really to be commended. Not easy to deal in all of these different countries with all of the complexities that are involved, financing the business, marketing the business, doing it with a very small team. Kudos to you guys for doing such a great job. It's really a pleasure to be speaking with you, Rachael and Monika, today. And Malarkey Kids, well, what a wonderful business. Thanks for joining us today. Great to hear your story.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today on the Export Impact podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. See you back here in a while.